Hello! Did you hear that? That's my digital bell sound effect because I don't have my bell with me. I am here in a recording studio where I haven't been for many, many months to make a tutorial for you. Hopefully you're watching this at some point in the future or in the past after you've invented time travel or whatever. And none of this matters, but it is September 2020 right now. I have not recorded anything here since March 2020. We're in the midst of a global pandemic. I am luckily in a room where I can close the door and I don't have to wear my mask for the moment while I record this, and I hope everybody's doing well. But let me just jump on in, and what I want to show you is how to take a p5.js sketch, maybe something you even made in the p5.js web editor, and upload it to GitHub and host it online using GitHub Pages. If you're watching this, the video has hopefully replaced this one right here, GitHub Pages for hosting p5.js sketches. Why am I making this video again? Well, I made this one over 4 years ago, and the interface and some of the ways that it works has changed. So it's time to make it anew. Although I will note that oddly enough, I seem to have the same haircut as in this one. Oh, coding rainbow reveal. Ah! I'm going to show you two ways how to do this. The first way is the easiest way, where you can just drag and drop your files into the browser and upload them. And then I'm going to show you how to do this with Terminal, typing some commands to push your files from your local computer onto GitHub to host them there. So the first thing is you need your P5 sketch. Most of the time I'm working in P5 in the web editor. There might be some magic way to go right from the web editor directly to GitHub, but frankly, you're probably more likely going to need to download your code first. So you can go here to download, and it's going to download a zip file with your HTML file, CSS file, JavaScript files, and any other files that have to do with your sketch. I have these files downloaded and in a folder on my desktop. I also have all the code open in Visual Studio Code. This is not necessary right now because I'm not making any changes to it, but Visual Studio Code is the editor that I use to develop locally on my computer, and I have a whole video about that you could take a look at, as well as a workflow series about some of these different pieces that I'm using. One small thing that I want to point out is that the reason you're able to see your P5 sketch over there running is because what's actually being loaded is an HTML page. And that HTML page has references to all of your JavaScript files in it. Sketch.js, particles.js, boundary.js, ray.js. So this is kind of a sophisticated example that I'm choosing to use, but you probably just have sketch.js if you've just started and making a P5 sketch with just one JavaScript file. Up here, this is where the P5 library itself is loaded. It's loaded from a URL, a CDN, a content delivery network. You might notice when you download your sketch from the P5 web editor, it actually downloads the P5 library as well and then references it locally, just like it's one of these other JavaScript files. I prefer generally to load from the CDN, but if you weren't connected to the internet and were running your P5.js sketch locally, having the P5 library itself downloaded is super useful. But none of that is really relevant here. What this video is about is just uploading any HTML, JavaScript, any files for hosting a web page. It doesn't have to be a P5.js sketch. And in order to do that, well, first you have to have a GitHub account. Of course, there's other places you could upload your files beyond just GitHub, but I'm showing you how to do it with GitHub Pages. This is my GitHub profile page. You can see it has all of my various repositories for the ML5 library, the Nature of Code book, some of the courses I'm currently teaching this semester. But now, in order to get my P5.js sketch into a repo, I want to make a brand new one. So to do that, there's this plus button up in the top right. I'm going to hit New Repository. I'm going to name it P5 Sketch Video Tutorial. Notice that, by the way, you can't actually have spaces, so it's going to automatically rename it with the dashes for me. And I'm saying I'm going to write a quick description. I want this to be public, although you could choose to make it private, even with GitHub Pages for hosting. And then now, I have a quandary. What do I do? The clue that you should take a look at is skip this step if you are importing an existing repository. I am not importing an existing repository. Yes, I'm bringing some existing code, but I haven't actually made a Git repo anywhere yet. The difference between Git and GitHub itself, a web hosting platform for Git repos, Git being just the software, the version control software itself, is a really important distinction that I cover in a bit more detail in the first video in this series. So you might want to double back and check that. But what I'm doing here is actually creating the repo on the GitHub website, and then I'm going to bring my files into it. The easiest way to do that is to add a README file. A README file is actually also where you can just describe everything about your project and talk to the community and put lots of nice rainbows and hearts in it if you want. but I'm just going to let it be a default one right now. And then also, why not? I'll choose a license because I want this to be an open source repository. Open source licenses is a huge topic that I'm not getting into right now, but one thing that I could do is make a quick decision of just picking MIT, which I know to be a very permissive license that would allow anybody to reuse this code in any way that they so choose. Now I'm going to create the repository. And here it is. Here's my P5 sketch video tutorial. It has my README, which I would probably want to edit and add a lot more information in, but I'll leave it as default right now. And then it's time to upload the p5.js sketch files. To do that, I could just navigate to the files themselves. I can select them and just drag them in. The GitHub website is going to recognize that I'm bringing in files. I can let go. It's uploading them. And then this is the key next step. I want to commit them. A commit is like a save to the repo. And in general, it's nice to write a note about what it is you're doing, although I could certainly just leave the add files via upload default message. But I'm going to add a little note in there. And now I'm presented with two options. Generally speaking, when you're adding files or changing files in a Git repo, you might want to consider doing something called a pull request, which is something that I've referred to in previous videos. It's a proposal to changes that aren't actually merged in yet. But right now, I can keep things really simple, and I could just commit directly to the main branch. If this wasn't a repository that I owned, that wasn't part of my account, I wouldn't have that option. I would only be able to propose these new files as a change, as a pull request. I'm going to hit commit. I'm going to do my processing your files dance. And here they are. We can now see that all of the files are there. And there's only one step left for me to do. GitHub Pages for hosting is not enabled by default. So I need to find the settings for this repository. It's actually over here on the top right under these three dots. I think if my browser page was a little smaller, you'll probably more likely see it as a button like this. I can click on settings, make it larger again, and then I can scroll down. You can see there's lots of options of things you could consider, but I really only want to look at right now this GitHub Pages. So GitHub Pages is currently disabled. I can select a branch in order to enable it. Now, in a simple project like this that I just started, there's only one branch, and you could check my video on branches to understand what those are, but the main branch is called main, and I am going to select it. And this is an interesting option it's giving me here. So I want to keep this default setting of root. I want my whole repo to be hosted as a website. But if you had a repo that had some stuff in it that's just for the repo itself, and maybe a directory that's for hosting online, I could change this to using maybe this docs folder, or I'm not sure what other options I have. But I'm going to keep root. I'm going to hit save. We can see it's now enabled, and it says your site is ready to be published at shiftman.github.io/p5-sketch-video-tutorial. You can see that there's a URL that's formed based on my GitHub account name, Shiftman, and my repo name, p5-sketch-video-tutorial. You can actually use GitHub Pages to host with a custom domain. I'd have to come back and do another video tutorial about that. But hopefully right now, if I just click on this, there it is. I have now hosted my p5.js sketch on GitHub using GitHub Pages. And I could copy this URL, I could tweet it, I could email it, I could send it all around the world and have people come and experience my sketch, as well as view my code on GitHub itself, and even propose changes and make pull requests and write comments and issues and all of that wonderful stuff that comes with the sort of collaborative software that is Git on the GitHub site. Now that I've done all of that, you could stop this video. I mean, you could have stopped it quite a long time ago, to be perfectly honest. But if you want to stick with me, I am now going to show you how to create the repo locally on your computer and then push it to GitHub without using the GitHub website interface, instead just typing commands into your local console. So for me, I use as my terminal application something called iTerm. Mac has terminal by default built in. On Windows, people use, I don't know, PowerShell, other things. What else do people use? I'll put some stuff on the screen. You might be on Linux. So as long as you have console access to your computer, and I can see if I type pwd or print working directory, I'm on my desktop under a folder called p5 sketches, and that's the name of this directory that has ls, all of these files in for my p5.js sketch. I've also already installed Git, that software, on my laptop. If you haven't done that and you want to learn more about working with Git locally in terminal, I have another video which also covers that in a bit more detail. But to create a repo on my local computer in a particular directory, I can type git init. Big word of warning. I have seen this happen so many times with students. It's very easy by accident to type git init like in the root directory of your computer, or even just in like your documents folder, and suddenly you've turned your entire computer into one giant monstrous Git repo, and it can cause all sorts of things to go haywire. If that happens to you, there's a really easy way to undo it. And I'm going to show that to you, but let me first finish off with typing git init here in the correct place. So now I've initialized an empty Git repository in this folder. Why is it empty? Aren't there files in there? Well, the reason why it's empty is, of course, you always have to add and commit those files, as you might have seen in some of my other videos. But let me just address this undoing by accident, making your whole computer into a Git repo. If I type ls-all, I think that's what I type, this is going to give me more information about what's actually in this directory. It's like permissions and all sorts of stuff. And you can see there's a new folder called .git. I don't actually see that folder here in my Finder because hidden files by default are turned off. But I can turn them on with a quick key command, shift command period. And you can see there it is. There is this Git folder. All I need to do if I didn't want this to be a Git repo anymore is hit command delete, is delete that folder. Now, you don't usually want to do this, but if you by accident had a folder, a hidden folder called .git, like in the root of your computer, and you didn't mean to do that, just deleting it will sort of undo that problem. I'm really getting into a lot of tangents in this video. Hopefully this is still helpful. Back to here. So just to check to make sure everything is kind of working the way I think, I'm going to type git status, and you can see like, oh, I'm on branch map. This makes me very unhappy because I usually use as the default branch name for my repos the word main. I think it's more clear. It's also a bit more inclusive language. It's what GitHub is choosing to use as its default branch as of October 1st, 2020. But my computer defaulted to the word master. So here you're getting a little extra lesson about how to change your branch name. And I'm going to actually, before I do that, I think I need to add and commit some files. So I'm going to add everything, and I'm going to commit them with just a short message like initial commit of p5.js sketch. And I've covered these commands in previous videos. And now I'm going to say git branch main, that creates a branch called main, git checkout main, and there we go. Now I'm in the main branch, and then I can say, I think it's git remove master? No. I don't know why I just thought git remove would work. So you can see even me who's been doing this for years and years, I can't remember what any of these commands are. I have to look them up. Thankfully, while I'm recording this video, I have a live chat going and I was just handed the answer. Git by Coding Garden with CJ, check out that YouTube channel. Git branch -d master. Okay, so I've deleted that branch. So now I am here and I can type git status once more just to make sure everything's okay. And I'm on branch made, nothing to commit. I've got all my files there. I am good to go. Now I can go back to GitHub and I'm going to create another repository. New repo. P5 demo 2. And I'm back to this quandary again. Oh, what do I do? Guess what? Remember how it said skip this step if you're importing an existing repository? Well, guess what? Now I'm importing an existing repository because I made the repository locally on this laptop right here. So I don't want to add a README. I don't want to add a git ignore. I don't want to choose a license. I just want to create the repository. And it is empty. It's blank. Luckily for me, oh, thank you, GitHub, for providing me a nice set of commands that I can type in to get this repo up here on GitHub itself. So the first instructions it's giving me is create a new repository on the command line. I actually already showed you that. I kind of awkwardly did it. And you could see how you could do it here with a README file and also like just creating the main branch. Boy, that was much more elegant there. Or I could push an existing repository from the command line, which is what I did. So this is what I need to do. I want to say git remote add origin. So what that does is it's creating a remote version of the repo that's locally on my computer on GitHub server, and this is the URL path to that particular repo. Paste this in here, hit enter, it's done. Then I could create that main branch, which I guess this is a one-line way of doing it that I didn't know about when I did it before, then that's probably the way I would double back and do it. But then I could, so I don't need to do that now, and now I can just push it. And by the way, this word origin in here is quite optional. I could have called it GitHub or my special wonderful server. That's just the name of the remote. So I'm saying, hey, I have a repo, I want to add a remote, and I can have multiple remotes. Like maybe I'm hosting my website and like on 5 different servers, and they each have a Git repo remote, and I can name them different things so I can know where they're going. But by default, most people use the word origin. I actually like to call it GitHub because sometimes it's a bit more clear to me. But I'm just going to use this. And I'm going to hit this. It is done. Now you might get an error message here where it's telling you like, I'm not authenticated, I haven't logged in. So I have also done some stuff to set up my computer to automatically be logged into that Git account. I need to make a video to show you how to do that. But if you run into trouble there, what I would suggest is coming up to the top and switching it to HTTPS, and then use this URL instead for when you do git remote add origin, and then use this HTTPS remote. That will allow you to type in your username and password for like kind of like a one-time login to push the repo. All right, now I should be able to just refresh this page. I pushed everything. And there it is. Now I got this like obnoxious DS store file, which is something that Mac made, and I don't have a README file. So there's some cleanup that I should probably do to this repo, but overall, we're ready to go. I can just go, once again, I can head over to Settings, GitHub Pages, enable it on the main branch, hit save, scroll back down, find my URL, open it up. This is my P5 sketch. Same result as before, but I had to like wander my way through all of those terrifying, but not so bad really if you think about it, command things to put into my terminal shell console thingy. I hope this video was helpful to you. I'm sure there were aspects that are confusing, that there's missing pieces, that there are gaps in your understanding and knowledge. Please ask those questions in the comments. Also, I was kind of figuring out some of the steps to do while I was doing them in this video, but I am going to put all of the steps in a clear guide that you're seeing right here in the video description, or at least a link from the video description. So I hope you enjoy those. See you later. Goodbye. The video is over now. I don't have a train whistle. It's just gonna end.